Hi everyone, Doctor Aspen here. I wanted to take the time to tell you guys a story that really speaks to me, a story that really resonates with me, especially what's happening in my life right now and the lives of so many others. As we're starting this new year and forging the pathway to our dreams and our goals. The story from the book that I'm about to share is specifically a book that's targeted to women and a story that would be targeted to women, but the way I'm going to spin it, and the way I'm going to break it down makes it available for any gender, which is really important to me. So, I'm going to tell you the story of Vasilia and the Doll. The Vasilia story is an old tale in Russia, Romania, Yugoslavia, and Poland. It is a story of intuition and the initiation of using it to serve you. It's a story of realization that things are not what they seem, and of tapping into that inner knowing that guides us through life's inescapable perils. The version of the story is taken from The Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD, respectively. She's an amazing author and amazing woman. So if you're really interested in this book, especially for the ladies out there watching this, I highly recommend this book. Okay, let's get started. Once there was, and once there was not, a young mother who lay on her deathbed, her face pale as the white wax roses in the scarcity of the church nearby. Her young daughter and her husband sat at the end of her old wooden bed and prayed that God would guide her safely into the next world. The dying mother called to Vasilia, and the little child in red boots and white apron knelt at her mother's side. "Here is a doll for you, my love," the mother whispered, and from the hairy coverlet she pulled her a tiny doll, which looked like Vasilia herself, was dressed in red boots, white apron, black skirt, and vest embroidered all over with colored thread. "Here are my last words, beloved," said the mother. "Should you lose your way or be in need of help, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. Keep the doll with you always. Do not tell anyone about her. Feed her when she is hungry. This is my mother's promise to you, my blessing on you, dear daughter." And with that, the mother's breath fell into the depths of her body, where it gathered up her soul and rushed out from between her lips, and the mother was dead. The child and her father mourned for a very long time, but like the field cruelly plowed under by war, the father's life rose green from the furrows again, and he married a widow with 2 daughters. Although the new stepmother and her daughters spoke in polite tones and always smiled like ladies, there was something of the rodent behind their smiles which Vasilia's father did not perceive. Sure enough, when the 3 women were alone with Vasilia, they tormented her, forced her to wait on them, sent her to chop wood so her lovely skin would become blemished. They hated her because she had a sweetness about her that was otherworldly. She was also very beautiful. Her breasts were bounding, while theirs dwindled from meanness. She was helpful and uncomplaining, while the stepmother and stepsisters were among themselves like rats in the offal pile at night. One day the stepmother and stepsisters simply could not stand Vasilia any longer. "Let us conspire to make the fire go out, and let us send Vasilia into the forest to the Baba Yaga, the witch, to beg for fire for our hearth. And when she reaches the Baba Yaga well, old Baba Yaga will kill her and eat her." Oh, they clapped and squeaked like things that live in the dark. That evening, when Vasilia came home from gathering wood, the entire house was dark. She was very concerned and addressed her stepmother. "What has happened? What will we do to cook with? What will we do to light the darkness?" The stepmother admonished, "You stupid child. Obviously, we have no fire, and I cannot go into the woods because I am old. My daughters can't go because they are afraid. So you are the only one who can go into the forest to find Baba Yaga and get a coal to start our fire again." Vasilia replied innocently, "Well, all right, yes, I'll do that." And so she went. The woods became darker and darker, and sticks cracked under her feet, frightening her. She reached down in the long, deep pocket of her apron, and there was the doll her dying mother had given her. And Vasilia patted the doll in her pocket and said, "Just touching this doll, yes, I feel better." And at every fork in the road, Vasilia reached into her pocket and consulted the doll. Well, should I go to the left or should I go to the right? The doll indicated yes or no, or this way or that way, and Vasilia fed the doll some of her bread as she walked and followed what she felt was emanating from the doll. Suddenly, a man in white on a white horse galloped by, and it became daylight. Further on, a man in red sauntered by on a red horse, and the sun rose. Vasilia walked and walked, and just as she came to the hovel of Baba Yaga, a rider dressed in black came trotting along on a black horse and rode right into Baba Yaga's hut. Swiftly it became night. The fence made of skulls and bones surrounding the hut began to blaze with an inner fire, so the clearing there in front of the forest glowed with an eerie light. Now the Baba Yaga was a very fearsome creature. She traveled not in a chariot, not in a coach, but in a cauldron shaped like a mortar, which flew along all by itself. She rode this vehicle with an oar shaped like a pestle, and all the while she swept out the tracks where she'd been with a broom made of a long dead person's hair. The cauldron she flew in through the sky with Baba Yaga's own greasy hair flying behind. Her long chin curved up and her long nose curved down, and they met in the middle. She had a tiny white goatee and warts on her skin from her trade in toads. Her brown-stained fingernails were thick and ridged like rows, and so curled she could not even make a fist. Now, even more strange was the Baba Yaga's house. It sat atop huge, scaly yellow chicken legs and walked about all itself and sometimes twirled around and around like an ecstatic dancer. The bolts on the doors and shutters were made of human fingers and toes, and the lock on the front door was a snout with many pointed teeth. Vasilia consulted her doll and asked, "Is this the house we seek?" And the doll, in its own way, answered, "Yes, this is what you seek." And before she could take another step, Baba Yaga and her cauldron descended on Vasilia and shouted down at her, "What do you want?" And the girl trembled. "Grandmother, I come for fire. My house is cold. My people will die. I need fire." Baba Yaga snapped, "Oh yes, I know you, and your people. Well, you useless child, you let the fire go out. That's an ill-advised thing to do, and besides, what makes you think I should give you the flame?" Vasilia consulted her doll and quickly replied, "Because I ask." And Baba Yaga purred, "You're lucky. That is the right answer." And Vasilia felt very lucky she had given the right answer. Baba Yaga threatened, "I cannot possibly give you fire until you've done work for me. If you perform these tasks for me, you shall have the fire. If not—" And here Vasilia saw Baba Yaga's eyes turn suddenly to red cinders. "If not, my child, you shall die." So Baba Yaga rumbled into the hovel and laid down upon her bed and ordered Vasilia to bring her what she was cooking in the oven. In the oven was enough food for 10 people, and the Yaga ate it all, leaving just a tiny crust and a thimble of soup for Vasilia. "Wash my clothes, sweep the yard and the house, prepare my food, and separate the mildewed corn from the good corn, and see that everything is in order. I will be back to inspect your work later. If it is not done, you will be my feast." And with that, Baba Yaga flew off in her cauldron with her nose as the windsock and her hair as the sail, and it became night again. Vasilia turned to her doll as soon as the Yaga had gone. "What shall I do? Can I complete these tasks in time?" The doll assured her she could, and to eat a little and to go to sleep. Vasilia fed the doll a little too, and then she slept. In the morning, the doll had done all the work, and all that remained was the meal to be cooked. In the evening, Yaga returned and found nothing undone. Pleased, in a way, but not pleased because she could find no fault, Baba Yaga sneered, "You are very lucky, girl." She then called on her faithful servants to grind the corn, and 3 pairs of hands appeared in mid-air and began to rasp and crush the corn. The chaff blew in the house like a golden snow. Finally it was done, and Baba Yaga sat down to eat. She ate for hours and ordered Vasilia on the morrow to again clean the house, sweep the yard, and launder her clothes. The Yaga pointed to a great mound of dirt in the yard. "In that pile of dirt are many poppy seeds, millions of poppy seeds, and I want it, in the morning, to have 1 pile of poppy seeds and 1 pile of dirt, all separated out from each other. Do you understand?" Vasilia almost fainted. Oh my, how am I going to do that? She reached into her pocket and the doll whispered, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." That night, Baba Yaga snored off to sleep, and Vasilia tried to pick the poppy seeds out of the dirt. After a time, the doll said to her, "Sleep now, all will be well." Again, the doll accomplished these tasks, and when the old woman returned home, all was done. Baba Yaga spoke sarcastically through her nose. "Well, lucky for you that you were able to do these things." She called for her faithful servants to press oil from the poppy seeds, and again 3 pairs of hands appeared and did so. While the Yaga was smearing her lips with the grease from her stew, Vasilia stood nearby. "So, what are you staring at?" barked the Baba Yaga. "May I ask some questions of you, grandmother?" asked Vasilia. "Ask," ordered the Yaga, "but remember, too much knowledge can make a person too old too soon." Vasilia asked about the white man on the white horse. "Ah," said the Yaga fondly, "that is my day." "And the red man on the red horse?" "Ah, that is my rising sun." "And the black man on the black horse?" "Ah, yes, that is the third, and he is my night." "I see," said Vasilia. Come, child, wouldn't you like to ask more questions?" wheeled the Yaga. Vasilia was about to ask about the pairs of hands that appeared and disappeared, but the doll began to jump up and down in her pocket. So instead, Vasilia said, "No, grandmother. As you yourself say, to know too much can make one old too soon." "Ah," the Yaga said, cocking her head like a bird. "You are wiser than your years, my girl. And how did you come to be this way?" "By the blessing of my mother," smiled Vasilia. "Blessing!" screeched the Baba Yaga. "Blessing! We need no blessings in this house. You'd best be on your way, daughter." She pushed Vasilia outdoors. "I'll tell you what, child. Here!" Baba Yaga took a skull with fiery eyes from her fence and put it on a stick. "Here, take this skull and a stick home with you. There's your fire. Don't say another word. Just be on your way." Vasilia began to thank the Yaga, but the little doll in her pocket began to jump up and down, and Vasilia realized she must take the fire and go. She ran for home, following the turns and twists in the road, with the doll telling her which way to go. It was night, and Vasilia came through the forest with the skull and the stick, the fire blazing from ear, eye, nose, and mouth holes of the skull. Suddenly, she became frightened of its eerie light and thought to throw it away, but the skull spoke to her and urged her to calm herself and to continue toward the home of her stepmothers and stepsisters. As Vasilia came nearer and nearer to her house, her stepmother and stepsisters looked out the window and saw strange yellow dancing throughout the woods. Closer and closer it came. They could not imagine what it could be. They had decided that Vasilia's long absence meant she was dead by now and her bones dragged away by animals and good riddance. Vasilia advanced closer and closer to home, and the stepmother and stepsister saw it was her, and they ran to her, saying that they had been without fire since she had left, and no matter how hard they tried to start one, it always went out. Vasilia entered the house feeling triumphant, for she had survived her dangerous journey and brought fire back to her home. But the skull and the stick watched the stepsisters and stepmother's every move and burnt into them, and by morning it had burnt the wicked trio into cinders. That's it. That's the end of the story. But there's more. Oh, there's always more. Of course there is. Let's break it down. There's some lessons of the story. And the first lesson of this beautiful story about intuition is what must die, must die. We have to let things go. Things have to die. The mother needed to die. The fire needed to get put out. Things need to die. So we need to understand what things are allowed to die. And that's the first part of the intuition. The second lesson really in this story is that the inner voice always knows. And you need to cherish that gift that is given to you. You need to feed it and nurture it as it nurtures and feeds you. You need to be fearless to ask within for advice. Because in the truth, nothing surprises this voice. It let things go when it needs to, and it welcomes new things coming in without judgment, because it always knows. Don't be afraid about listening to this voice, and know that to not listen to this voice is not against your will, but only against your training. Guided by the voice of the little doll and illuminated by the light of the fiery skull, we always know what is best. I want to talk about these 9 tasks because this story is about an intuition initiation, trial by literally fire. And I want to talk about the 9 tasks. So the first task in this is allowing the good mother to die. It's learning to become one's own mother when we allow the idea of the nurturer that we know to go away. It's becoming alert by oneself for oneself. And in that process, a new person is born. Vasilia is reborn as a new person in understanding. She does no longer have this crutch to lean on. The second task is exposing the shadow. Vasilia learns that not every mother is as nice as the one she has known, which means not every nurturer and not every lesson and not every person is going to be as nice as the people that you know. So it's exposing the shadow. It's becoming exposed to one's own shadow and the shadows of others' behaviors and the shadow of others through their behaviors. And ultimately, it's learning to make the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself that, of course, manifests not in Vasilia, but in Vasilia's stepmother and stepsister. There is a reason that they're in her life. They are in some way a reflection of the worst part of herself, even though she does not display it. The third task in this story and in the initiation of the intuition is navigating the dark. It's entering the woods or this scary place. It's learning to trust the senses by heeding the doll's direction, by feeding the doll. We're learning to give power of decision to the intuition, because that's ultimately what the doll represents, is that inner voice of intuition. The fourth step is facing the wild hag, which is really being able to face one's fears. When Vasilia faces this wild hag, she is facing everything that she fears. She is facing the opposite of everything that she's known to be true about mothers and grandmothers and nurturers. She's really having to stand there and do it for herself. It's being able to face the wild goddess teacher. It's being able to face the chaos as a teacher. That not everything is structured and organized. Sometimes there are things that are others outside of us. And it's becoming familiar with the other, the opposite. When we become familiar with the opposite, we learn things from them. We eat their food or take some of their things or take their knowledge with them. So when Vasilia eats some of this woman's great feast, she's taking just tiny pieces of that information with her. And it's learning to see one's power in the power of others. Vasilia is encountered with a woman who represents and embodies everything chaotic and crazy. But yet there is still power there. And Vasilia is learning to see it in herself for the very first time and seeing it in somebody else. So when we trust our intuition, we're going to have to face our fears. But they are the fears that we've concocted in our own mind. The fifth task is serving the non-rational, studying inner purifications, which is the sorting, the nourishing, the unsoiling that Vasilia had to do in the presence of Baba Yaga. These tedious, seemingly meaningless tasks that only one person benefit from is actually building the energy and momentum to manifest the things that Vasilia really needs to understand the strength in herself. The sixth task is separating this from that. This is about discernment and judgment calls. It's the power of the unconscious and the worker bee mind, the hands that magically appear for Baba Yaga, and the life and death aspect of the corn versus the poppy seeds. Separating this from that, and practicing discernment. This is good versus this is bad. This is mildewed corn. This is fresh corn. This is dirt. This is poppy seed. And having keen discernment over what is the best to keep and what actually needs to get thrown away. Really inspecting things. The seventh task is asking the mysteries, asking the questions. And when Vasilia is doing this, she's finally getting wisdom from this psycho person, from this crazy woman, this wild woman. She's finally going to get information that she's been dying to ask these questions, being in the presence of this insane woman. It's understanding the nature of life and death and rebirth when she's asking about the horsemen. The day, the night, the rising sun. And she's learning about learning, the truth about learning, because the truth about learning is just what they said. If you know too much too soon, you're going to grow old too quickly. And it's about learning what to ask and why to ask it and when to ask it. She didn't need to know everything. The 8th task is standing on all fours or standing on her own. It's the power of the blessing, the faith and love. Baba Yaga immediately kicked Vasilia out of her home when she realized that she had a blessing. And it wasn't just any blessing, it was the blessing of a mother's love. The power of unconditional love. And it's understanding, taking on and respecting immense power, even when it's earned, because Vasilia earned the respect of Baba Yaga, that they're having a conversation and she's getting to ask questions. She's getting to take pieces of that experience with her. So she's respecting the power that this woman has. Now she's respecting her own power. Even when it's earned, she's earned that. And it's revisiting life with this new light, the journey back to home with the eerie light of the skull. Baba Yaga gives her the light. Here you go, take this, go. There's no blessings allowed here. She doesn't want that love source energy, that power of manifesting near her, because that's not what she vibrates on. And then the 9th task is the recasting of the shadow self and implementing the intuition. It's using one's new vision to recognize and react to the negative shadow in oneself and others, the negative aspects of oneself and others. This new vision given by the glowing skull, this new eerie red light. It's a deep light. It's not like the light of the sun. It's different. It's learned. The trusting the knowledge that comes from this new vision, trusting that she's going to be safe by the guidance of the doll and lit in the path of this new understanding, this learned understanding of good and bad, necessary, unnecessary. And it's recasting the inner shadow based on this new light, this new relationship with one shadow and the shadow of others. When her family sees her, her stepmother and stepsisters and family sees her, the skull relights the fires in the house, but it also burns through them because it sees their true nature and it burns them into cinders and ash and destroys them. So this new light destroys the ego and the shadow of other people because you can understand how to interact with it now because you've understood your own. That's the huge lesson for Vasilia. So here are the lessons of the story. What must die, must die. It's a huge story about letting go. It's about that inner voice. The inner voice knows. It always knows. And that you should cherish that gift given to you, whether you're male or female. You need to feed it and nurture it as it nurtures and feeds you. Ask within for advice. And know that nothing surprises this inner voice. It lets things go when it needs to, and it welcomes new things coming in when it's ready. And when we're always ready, by the way. To not listen to this voice is not against your will, but against your training. Guided by the voice of the little doll and illuminated by the light of the fiery skull, we always know what is best. This story is especially relevant to me as I have really learned to rely and trust this inner voice. I have both the inner voice and the burning skull, and I need to now trust that they will guide me through the woods. And I offer my own spin on this story, written as an Instagram post nearly 2 years ago, before I even read the book. And I just think that it's so funny that it's gone full circle. You never know where your path will lead you. Sometimes it is down a beautiful, well-lit oasis with birds chirping and the whole nine. But other times it's down a dark, dead tree, creepy-looking maze where the only thing you can hear is your pounding heart and the occasional branch break from some evil thing following closely in the eaves, waiting for the weak point to attack. It's a conscious choice to walk both paths the same way, without fear, with dignity, with purpose, and knowing that all paths are temporary and that both paths will lead you to the destination if you are determined. Even if I have a plan and the spirits may agree and support me, there are still things we all must do to make the greater plan manifest. It's a lesson to encourage yourself to keep strong, knowing you're about to walk along that dark path again, and knowing also that it will lead you to where you ultimately want to be, even if it does not look like it. It's about perspective, and even just a mantra of "this is only temporary" may be enough to inspire a lifted head and a strong stride on the dark path towards your goal, focused and confident. Thank you so much for watching this video and joining me with this story. Again, the book that I got this from, if you're interested in learning some more, is The Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD, respectively. I'm just going to say a little prayer before I go. Spirit guides, guardian angels, masters, teachers, and loved ones, protect me, heal me, guide me. Protect all those watching this, heal all those watching this, and guide all those watching this. In the name of the highest source of love and light. Thank you, and Amen. Blessings.